Hey everybody, welcome back to another Instagram Live with MS Insight. I'm Erica with MS Insight and so excited to bring you this interview today. You know we love talking with MS warriors and hearing your stories and knowing just how you're getting through what you're getting through this journey. So I'm gonna add my guest here today. She's coming on. I'm excited to talk to her and hear her story. So keep watching. Takes just a second for her to pop on. Hi, Kelsey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, let me get my head positioned.
I know it.
Thanks for joining us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you've probably seen some of our interviews before, and people watching, we do this pretty much once a month these days. And
Yeah.
you know, MS Insight, we're here to share patient stories and offer encouragement and inspiration. And so I had been following your Instagram account and I thought it was so cute for one thing. You do a great job. And,
Thanks.
you know, I was just really inspired by your story. And I am so glad to have you on today. And so I just want to kick things off by asking you, tell us a little bit about yourself and when you got your diagnosis.
Sure. I'm flattered to be here, so thanks for asking. I am a mom of two girls. My kids are 3 and 5. My husband, he works from home before COVID, so it's been quite the zoo here this year, or last year, I guess I should say now, right?
Yes.
Um, but I was first diagnosed in 2019 was the official diagnosis. Now, the first time I saw a neurologist was actually in 2015, right after I had my first daughter. And it was funny because that neurologist was like, "Oh, those are just spots on your MRI. Those are migraines. It's fine. You're too young for MS." And so I went undiagnosed for 4 years. And it wasn't until I had like a really bad flare that I called, and I guess it worked out because that neurologist was no longer there, so I got a second opinion without searching for one. And you know, it was instant within her getting my new MRI results. She's like, "Yeah, there's no doubt." So it's been quite the journey to diagnosis for sure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say looking back, they recognize things that were probably symptoms that they sort of wrote off as, you know, oh, it's just this or it's just that. Did you have things like that looking back in hindsight, you realize it was probably related?
100%. The first was after I had my first daughter, my right leg kept buckling, and people kept writing it off. They're like, "Oh, it's just lasting effects of the epidural. Oh, it's just motherhood." And then when I had my second daughter, my right arm, it was numb for, weeks at a time. And they're like, "Oh, it's just because you're nursing, you're holding her too long." And in hindsight, after speaking with an MS specialist, she's like, "Yeah, absolutely not. Those are all key characteristics of MS."
Yeah, it seems like, and I hear this a lot, that people hear that a lot. People, oh, it's just this or it's just that. And you almost feel like you're like, am I crazy? Like, am I making this up? Like something's wrong with me? And so many people say that even though it's like nobody wants to get a diagnosis of MS, it is sort of like a relief to get it because you finally know what's wrong. How did you feel the day that you got that diagnosis?
Yeah, that is definitely probably how I would describe it too. The flare that led me to go back to a doctor. I had lost vision in my left eye. The only way to describe it is I woke up every day telling my husband, I'm like, "I feel drunk." And he's like, "What is wrong with you? You're probably dehydrated or you didn't eat right or. And, I told him, I was like, "I just can't connect A to B. It's like a thought never made it where it needed to go." And at the time I was under a lot of stress. So, that can set off more symptoms. But I was finishing up my master's degree. I was planning our wedding. I had 2 kids at home, and, it was like writing papers for school. Like I would think I'm writing a sentence and I'd go back and read the, draft. And I'm like, that is not at all what I swear I just typed. And so I thought I was crazy. So when it came, when the diagnosis came, I was like, everything makes sense. It's like the whole world, came back in a circle because I'm like, it all makes so much sense now.
And had you heard of it before? Did you know anything about it?
Yeah, so with my first neurologist who said that it was probably just migraines, she had touched on it once, when she was just like, you're too young for MS. And so, I had Googled it and I was like, oh, whatever, she's the expert. But then once I started having all those symptoms, it was like every Google search led to MS. And so, at that point, I felt at least enough surface educated to know about it. But since diagnosis, I feel like all of us who have MS have definitely read up a lot more.
So is that, and this is, I'm a beginner person when it comes to knowledge, but can you be too young? I know one girl that we spoke to a couple of weeks ago, like she actually realized that she was actually diagnosed at the age of 11. Mm-hmm. So obviously kids can get it, but did you know if it's just not common?
Yeah, people will say that, but I feel like, I wonder if it's just not like we don't have enough people who've come forward who might have had it. Because in hindsight, I think back to times, I remember being in high school and I would have these like gripping stomach pains and they never figured out what it was. They never, oh, it's heartburn or, some sort of gastro issue. They never found anything. And so now that I'm an adult, now that I have MS, I'm like, oh, maybe that was the early beginnings of an MS hug. I just wasn't looking for it at 17 years old, So,
oh yes, that makes so much sense. Cause like
mm-hmm.
people do put it off. And someone else we spoke to, she's like, yeah, looking back, like it could have been as early as like 10 or 11 years old. So you just mentioned MS hug, and I've heard a couple people mention that. Now, a lot of our people in this community are have very new diagnoses. So can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so an MS hug, it's a feeling of constricting over your torso. And it's so funny. I actually, this morning, I was having that symptom. And for me, like I had just put it together because at first I'm like, oh, maybe I ate something bad last night. And then I'm like, oh, unexplainable rib cage pain. That's just like a gripping, seizing moment. That's what an MS hug is. So if you ever have a strange torso kind of sensation, like for me, the only way to explain it is it's like, it's not the organs under my ribs and it's not the muscles, but it's just like my ribs themselves feel like they're like constricting. So if you ever have unexplainable pains, I would say it's probably MS related.
Yeah, there are just so many different symptoms that people have that it's just sort of all over the spectrum. You've had your diagnosis for about 2 years, is that right?
Yep.
And so have you found a medication or a treatment that works for you? Have you kind of switched it up and tried different things, or how's that been going?
I have only been on one. I'm on Ocrevus right now, which is an infusion drug. You get it every 6 months, and it is a B-cell depletion drug. So you operate with half an immune system. So my body can still fight off things. It just doesn't recognize when it comes in contact with something. So I might get really sick with a cold because my body didn't realize that it was there. But for me, it's worked great. I've had no disease progression, no new, symptoms or anything. And, I'm feeling very lucky. My doctor's approach to disease modifying therapies was I'm young and healthy. And so to try harder, more extreme drugs now while my body can handle it is a better option. I know there are other doctors who take, let's try these less drugs and work our way up to see what works. But for me, I'm really happy with the Ocrevus. It's every 6 months, so it's not invasive into my lifestyle.
Yeah. Now, I want to ask you about being a mom.
Yeah.
I have kids the exact same age, so
I'm
with
you understand
that. But how has that affected your motherhood? I know you have been dealing with it longer than your diagnosis because you weren't sure what was wrong before. But now that you have it, like, how does having MS affect motherhood for you?
Yeah, it's definitely, it can hinder you sometimes. There are bad days. There are days when you're tired. There are days when you're sore or you just can't hack it. And so I just tried to give myself some grace and just say, you know what, it's okay. I'm going to have a movie day, I'm going to tell the kids we're going to, watch a movie, or, I'll just tell them, oh, mommy needs, a nap really quick. I just need to lay down. And so they don't know necessarily that something is up, because to them, a movie night could be something super exciting. And so I try to make the best of it, but also accept my boundaries when I know that my body is not up for it.
Yeah, you said have grace, which reminds me of your Instagram handle, Hot
Yeah.
Mess with Grace. So tell us about how you decided to go with that.
Yeah, it's so funny. It sort of happened by accident because, somebody was like, "Oh, describe, the perfect person," And I was like, "Oh, I really loved Martha Stewart as a kid, and like just, everything has a place and it's so clean and nice." But then having kids, I recognize, life is always a hot mess express. Like, doesn't matter what kind of filter you put on it, like life is a hot mess. And so I was like, oh, if you could just merge the two, hot mess with grace. And so I think, life is just about embracing the beauty of a hot mess sometimes.
Yes, totally. I love that. And so with your account, do you have sort of any goals with that? Like, are you aiming to share inspiration, or do you have any goals with that?
Yeah, it's so funny because when I got on Instagram, it was brand new. I was like 17, and it was just like photo filters. Like, it wasn't social media. So, it's been going for a long time with just random things. But since being diagnosed, one of the blessings was I had a friend who put me in touch with her friend who had MS as well. And she was older. I want to say she was in her 50s maybe. So she'd had her diagnosis for about 20 years. And just being able to talk to somebody who knew how uncertain things were was really good. And so I had decided in that moment, like, yes, I might have this disease that's can really be crappy. And I don't know what it's going to do to me, but I want to be that person for other people, because it was just so calming to hear that somebody was like, yeah, I understand that your leg just goes jelly and everybody thinks you're a klutz. Like, I totally get that. And so, if anything, I love that my account can be a safe place for people to talk to. I've had a lot of people send me messages and I welcome them. So anybody, if you want to send me a message, that's fine. But, and just, they're scared. People are scared when they're freshly diagnosed and they need somebody to talk to.
Yeah. Are you in any like support groups, or I know there's a lot of Facebook groups out there?
Yeah, I am in some Facebook groups. I found one specific to Ocrevus. So that was good to talk to people on the same therapy to see, side effects and such. And then I'm in one that's women with MS. I find that one helpful because as women, we do have some different, things to deal with. And then a generic MS support group.
Yeah, I think it's just, whatever you're dealing with, it's just so nice to be able to know that you can bring your questions or even just like complaints, like whatever you're dealing with, just bring it into people that get it and that can offer that encouragement, like from a perspective that they know. So
yes,
that's awesome.
100%.
So like I mentioned, a lot of people that we speak to here do have a new diagnosis. So what is your best advice to someone? Say it was just last week and they're like, they're searching the internet like crazy, just looking for like resources and support. What would be your advice to someone?
My best advice would be to just breathe. Google is a great but scary thing. I think everybody's mind sort of goes to worse places at first. And there are a lot of people who MS has affected their lives significantly. But it doesn't mean it's going to be you. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen so soon. And so I definitely suggest taking what you read. I think reading and Googling is a good thing. I think being educated is a good thing. But take it with a grain of salt, a dose of reality. I tell my husband all the time, I'm planning for when I'm reaching later stages in my life and I've had this disease for a while, I'll probably need a cane or a walker or a scooter. And, my husband always reminds me, you don't know that. But I think that if you plan for what could be without catastrophizing it in your life, I think that's, the best way to go when you're searching for things in the beginning.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Sort of like rather than running away, like just lay it out on the table and be like, okay, like, so process that. What does that mean? And like have a plan to move forward. I think you're right that the education component is so empowering for people,
Mhm.
because if you know something, then that really gives you a lot more strength and a lot more ability to make decisions that are best for your healthcare. So, um, yeah, that's all we have for you, Kelsey. Thank you so much for
Of
sharing your
course.
story. We appreciate it. Everybody go follow her. She's got a great account. We just appreciate you so much coming on today.
I'm so thankful you had me, and I look forward to chatting with some of you and connecting and, growing our MS community some more.
Yes, thank you so much. We'll see you later.
Bye, guys.
Bye. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. And check out some of our past interviews if you want to hear more from some other MS warriors. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We have a lot of longer form interviews there, as well as on Facebook. We would love for you to join our community. Just check out msinsight.org, and we will see you next time.